Yo, what's up out there in the world of the internet? Sorry about that. This is GNC Play Television, our weekly podcast dedicated to all things video games. And how y'all doing out there? So I'll give y'all a round of applause. There you go. If it decides to work, fix my microphone. All right. So the first thing we are going to discuss today is the Halo studio. Like Halo is changing. It has become 343 is changing to Halo Studio, and it had an interesting reception. People really wasn't messing with it. So let's look at the actual video. So if I can freaking find it, here we go. All right, there we go. It's a new dawn to Halo Studios. So all right, what's funny is basically everyone got to the same point of this video and had this similar response to this. So let's share this. All right, here we go. So,
Chris Matthews, take one. Mark.
All the upload, the download,
Mark.
the downvote
I was
ratio
told
is
that I
not
can
too
just be
bad.
my authentic self, Chris.
For 6 years, I don't want to be in front of a camera.
There's so much to do and so much fun to be had when you play Halo that I feel like I never run out of things to do.
I love intricate stories.
This is what pretty much most people who are having issues with this got to. And it's like these game companies do not learn their lesson, like pretty much. And right now, a large chunk of the people of the buying public, as soon as they see anybody with colored hair, they're out. And somebody checked into this lady's bio, and it is everything that you would think it was. It is gay flags. She is a diversity person. It's all about inclusivity, yada yada yada. It is all of that. Everything that people dislike about modern gaming is wrapped up in this individual right there. They're going to make something that people are not going to like because they keep hiring these people. I don't know why they hire these people. Not a clue. So she is the person in charge of the new Halo Studios, or the chief of staff.
That take place across lots of different worlds, have lots of different meaningful characters.
What made Halo successful at the beginning? What is the legacy of Halo, and what's the soul that we want to bring forward? And what's the...
I doubt if any of you know, because just like most of these companies, all right, just like most of these development studios that you love, everyone that made that studio is gone. So they replaced them with these people who, it's like they do not understand how to make a game for their customer base, and they don't seem to understand that their customer base is mostly guys. That's basically what happened with Gears of War. Gears of War is a third-person shooter with manly men who doing manly men shit, grabbing big guns, big body armor, fighting big enemies, bloody, violent, all of that. A smash hit through the first three. Then Epic decides that they no longer want to continue doing that. No, it's like first four. So the fourth one was okay. Epic decides that they don't want to do it anymore because Microsoft owns the license. Microsoft decided to dedicate a studio to making it, and the first game we get is about his son and his two diverse friends. And it was a weird, like, it was a weird take on the series, because the first three were basically a story. It had a beginning, middle, and an end. It was an overall arc, but each one was a chapter in that overall arc that ended in the third one, for the most part. Then they decided to do this weird thing in the new one from the new studio, and then they took the feedback they got from that and decided to make it about his friend. So you start out with giant big dudes holding giant freaking guns, shooting at giant big enemies, and it turns into a thing about a lady finding her mother and all kind of stuff, and it just like fell off a cliff. So to the point where at least they seem to have learned their lesson with that one, because the next game that they announce is big burly dudes fighting big burly monsters. And went back to what it is. I have serious doubts that any of these people I've seen so far is going to be able to pull that off with Halo. So let's see.
Craft of making Halo games, and how do we set our studio at best to go deliver on that?
We knew we had to make a change in order to take us into the future.
When I first heard about Halo moving on Real Engine, my first thought was, this is going to be a really hard secret to keep.
I think fans are going to be excited about the future of Halo because of the possibilities that are afforded us by using Unreal.
Before, we really had to split our focus in thinking about building an engine, supporting it, being really kind of a tech company and a studio at the same time.
Microsoft is a tech company. This is a subsidiary of a tech company. What are you talking about?
Since we've made the change to shift to UE, we can bring Halo forward in ways that people have never seen before while still being true to what Halo is.
The Foundry project was an effort to show ourselves how far we can push things using Unreal 5.
New studio art director, Chris, came to me and said, hey, I have this crazy idea.
He said, hey, there's this thing called Project Foundry that I want to do. Let's make it happen.
Foundry specifically is based around the same concept of the Foundry in Halo lore. It's the place where Halo rings are born. It's not a game.
Wait a minute. Didn't they have like a Foundry in other games? So why are they acting like that's a new thing?
It's a research
Maybe I'm
project
remembering
for our
incorrectly.
studio so we can prepare ourselves for the next steps of making Halo games.
The original Halo franchise was a graphics showcase. It was best in class. That's what Halo was when it first was released, and that's what Halo needs to be again.
So
Okay, they seem to be under the impression that shiny is better. The problem isn't that the last one that you made looked bad. Didn't even play bad. It had some gameplay elements people didn't like, and it got really repetitive. And that was what the problem was. And part of the lore about and what Bungie did very well was tell a good story. So that's what Halo was. And it was groundbreaking because it allowed like a PC experience of a first person shooter on a console for basically the first time. It's like, yeah, they had other first person shooters on consoles from the Nintendo 64, yada yada yada. Is it that this was the first time where it actually felt like how it feels when you play with a PC for the most part? I know it's not as like the controls won't ever be as precise, but it kind of felt like it. So if you was a PC gamer and you play Halo for the first time, you're like, oh, okay. So I can sit in my living room and have a PC first person shooter experience. All right, bring this on. And then the story was great. So they had like pretty good stories. And then again, the last game that Bungie worked on was Reach. Reach was good, ended very good. So like it was like a prequel. And then from that moment on, 343 took over, and they didn't know what to do with it. So they just basically rehashed a bunch of stuff. It's like, oh, you like this, so we're gonna put this in the game. Oh, you like that, we're gonna put this in the game. Nothing innovative, nothing, that great. That stuff. I mean, just like in this thing, he's talking about the Foundry. They had the Foundry in other games, so I don't know exactly why he's talking like this is a new feature. Excuse me. Just because you're doing it in Unreal Engine, I'm like, okay, that's great, I guess. But Shiny is not the problem, you know.
Once Project Foundry had been approved, we took the entire creative team and we ideated on 3 locations, something old, something new, and something really alien.
We had the Pacific Northwest, which is sort of traditional Halo biome.
We were trying to shove as much foliage in there as humanly possible to make it really feel like you're on a hike in the, Cascades.
The Cold Lands, which was the second biome that we took on, it was more of a technical showcase where we could play with shaders, we could play with deformable landscapes and terrains. Unreal affords us more opportunity than we've ever had in the past.
On the surface, it might just look all like snow, but how many layers of things combine to really give that winter look?
And then our third biome was the Blight Lands, which is any land that's been completely taken over by the flood.
I wanted to give our team the opportunity to really express an alien world, a really alien world, taking something way further than they may have actually done in previous Halo games.
What's impressed me about watching the Halo team work in Unreal is how beautiful everything looks, how incredible the environments look. I don't think we've seen anything quite like it in Unreal Engine before.
Fortunately, we have a studio that's really passionate about Halo, about the look and the feel. And, I think there's a lot of hunger to really collaborate, to move forward together.
Foundry was an initiative that touched on every part of the creative process, everything from concept art, VFX, characters, vehicles, and weapons to make the future games of Halo.
Creating an asset, taking this design, now we can really dig into material foundations. What is it actually made of? How is it physically accurate to the world? Now we get to take all the wonderful legacy assets that we have, bring them to life, and bring them to today's standards.
We are really
okay. So far, all they're talking about is shiny shit. Where are you gonna take the story at? It's like I'm trying to remember Master Chief. Like you completed the story. Like I'm not sure where you go from where you ended it at. It's like, so what's next? I don't hear anything about what's next. You're showing me a lot of fluff. It's like, ooh, it's shiny. And the metal looks like metal. Okay. But what story are you going to tell? If you're going to start the studio again and you're going to refurbish, tell me how the story is going to go. What adventure is Master Chief going to get into now? You're talking about the flood. I'm like, okay, if I remember correctly, the halos are designed to get rid of the flood. So you cut the halos on, it kills everything in the universe and restarts everything all over again. That's how they decided to get rid of the flood. Like, okay, so is your story going to be how to get rid of the flood without doing that? I'm not sure how. Who are your enemies? Is it the flood? I mean, that's going to get kind of bad, like boring fairly quickly. And it was a problem with the other games. It was same old. You fighting the same thing over and over and over again. It got very repetitive. So far, it's kind of like,
really excited to be not just working on multiple projects, but also expanding our studio.
As a lifelong Halo player, I think the game's only going to get better when we get those new, unique perspectives and people bring in their expertise and passion for the Halo franchise.
We are looking for new talent as the projects that we're working on kind of get further and further into their development cycles.
And it is great to be part of a team that's growing because you can kind of see that force multiplied as people come in and take on challenges and you can do more.
Imagine a place where you have the commitment that this is what we want to do, Halo games, and create those experiences. And you can express your talent, your creativity, and your professional ambitions in that place.
We're looking for designers, we're looking for artists, we're looking for engineers.
It feels like a new beginning for the studio in a lot of ways, and I think that's pretty rare.
And I think we arrived now at a point where you see the beginnings of people to start to believe in the process.
There's so much momentum that we have right now and focus and clarity on not just what we're building, but why we're building and kind of this next phase of Halo.
The worlds that we're building, the stories that we're going after,
The potential at Halo right now is huge.
Halo Infinite was the last remnants of how we made Halo games in the past. That was our recipe. And what we are doing right now, we're changing that recipe.
But you didn't do a good job. That was the biggest problem. You didn't do a good job. I don't really have too much faith that you're going to do a better one. Okay, shiny logo. What are the comments? All right, Halo. It's about the graphics. It's about the gameplay, story, weapons, and overall complete game. Remember when they said Halo Infinite was going to be a 10-year game? Just get the physics right. Not gonna lie, it's hilarious knowing that they changed the studio name because they knew how despised 343 were and didn't want to associate themselves with it. Yeah, it's pretty funny. All right, well, that was 6 minutes of nothing. I don't that how that's supposed to entice anybody to get that excited. But you know, like I said, the ratio was mostly positive. People still, you know, they like Halo and they're hoping for the best. But my thing is, it's like entice me by telling me give me a hint into the story for the first game that you're going to do. Do not show me graphics. I don't care about that. Graphics you can show after you get me excited about the concept art of the direction, the new enemies, the kind of new, just a little teaser of this stuff. That's what you should have done. Not showing me. I know how Unreal Engine looks. It's like I can see other games that use Unreal Engine. I can see what like. So you're using that, so it's gonna look like that. It's pretty much a given. Show me a story. Yes. So your initial thing doesn't excite me. It's kind of like, all right. So I am trying not to black pill when it comes to a lot of this stuff, but these people do not help. The biggest problem is you guys actually didn't get Halo. That's why people didn't like it, because you didn't seem to understand Halo and you just rehashed a bunch of stuff. All right, so hopefully they'll have figured out to not put a bunch of that woke crap into it, but you never know nowadays with these studios. Okay, so speaking of which, there was actually a poll that someone did, and the results are pretty interesting. So let me share the screen. This article is not that long. Alrighty. Over 95% of players don't consider inclusivity important in gaming. Recent poll indicates that over 95% of players don't care about inclusivity in games. Forcing inclusivity into video games has been a known culprit, leading them to failure. DEI has become an unfortunate trend that has gradually been gaining more and more pace. And this is on Tech for Games. Inclusivity is an unfortunate trend and has picked up in industry over the last few years. While having characters of different origins isn't anything bad nor anything new, forcing a narrative is. Most fans share that opinion. 95% of gamers voted that they don't care about inclusivity in gaming in a recent poll. Why it matters. Inclusivity has emerged as a proven culprit that ruins an entire game. We have some clear examples in the last few years, including Concord, Suicide Squad, and more, and the backlash from fans is quite apparent. What's funny about it is when they get the backlash, they always assume that everyone's bigot, racist, or whatever, and completely ignore the fact that a bunch of the people who are complaining about it look like me. Yeah, I get ignored. It's like my opinion doesn't matter because it's, because it is inconvenient. So therefore, just ignore the brown people who are also upset about this stuff. It's like, we're upset about this. We're upset about the body type 1, body type 2. They ignore the women who complain about that. And they had an interview with the guys from Dragon Quest. and they actually scrubbed that interview from the internet because it's basically was like calling us a silly nation because we thought about this kind of stuff. It's like, no, it's not us. It's the fact that just like in the Halo thing, they hire people like this person who everything goes through them and they assume that everyone thinks like them to some degree. So therefore they position everything in that opinion. So what happens is eventually Master Chief will become secondary in his own story. It's like they try to replace Master Chief with a more diverse set of Spartans, and people didn't really like that too much. So they eventually had to bring him back. They even did that in a TV show. It's like, while we have not seen what Master Chief's face looks like, we do know that he is a white guy. He is like, because you've seen shots in various illustrations of like him at a distance as a child, so we know that he's a white dude. But they decided to make him a diverse guy, a short diverse guy, who, because the actor didn't understand that nobody's ever seen what Master Chief looks like, and you can't act and keep your helmet all the time. It's like we've only had that happen once, and that was a Carl Urban did that, and it's a very excellent movie. It's Judge Dredd. He spent the entire movie with his helmet on because the character never takes his helmet off. But that is like the only time that has ever happened. Usually it's like with Spider-Man and Batman, it's like somehow their mask always comes off. So back to the article. All right. Now, inclusivity isn't a bad thing. In fact, it's always good to see characters from different origins, genders, races in a game. But what's offsetting is the forced inclusivity narrative that pushes political agendas into gaming. For context, Suicide Squad Killed the Justice introduced Mrs. Freeze in last season, which was very confusing because people at first thought it was his wife that became him, like Mr. Freeze. But in actuality, it was a gender swap alternate version from another universe who, while that I think the person was a female, but she was still married to the chick. All right. Characters are huge in the comic books, movies, and TV shows, and there's always been Victor Freeze or Mr. Freeze. The idea of changing that attracted a lot of criticism. Yes. Forced inclusivity was never a problem a few years ago, ever since consultation companies like Sweet Baby Inc. emerged. And if you ever hear about like the person who runs this, she essentially wants every game to appeal to her. And because she just talks about the stuff that, well, she didn't feel represented, and she didn't feel this, and she didn't feel that. And it's like, so she saw a game that had a black character in it, and now she feels seen, completely ignoring the fact, freaking political ads, man. I don't want to see this crap. Completely ignoring the fact that we've had options to create your own character in games for a long time now. I don't want to see this nonsense. All right. This unfortunate trend has been forced into the industry, ruining many great games. Sweet Baby Inc. has a bunch of notable names working with it, including Santa Monica, Xbox Game Studios, hence the fine folks you saw in that trailer. Warner Brothers, Ubisoft, and more. Ubisoft is currently killing itself slowly. Actually, not even that slow. They have had like terrible game after terrible game after terrible game. The influence is quite visible in their recent titles as well. Square Enix should be appreciated for being pulled off the list, but that don't pull out of the list, but that don't necessarily mean that maybe they got rid of Sweet Baby Inc. because people, as soon as they see that now, they're out. One of Sweet Baby Inc.'s employees even admitted that the company's goal is to burn the industry to the ground, indicating a massive threat to the gaming industry. Nonetheless, this trend needs to stop. Otherwise, we'll see a lot more big budget games. All right, so let's see what the comments are. All right, so it's been known for a while outside of some media echo chambers who still don't realize that they're barely representing even 20% of the gamers. I don't even think it is even that. All right. No, it's just you get a bunch of narcissistic people. They're cleaning up or something. You get a bunch of narcissistic people who only want to see themselves in anything. Don't understand that you are selling a product to other people, so that you have to appeal to a target audience. You don't necessarily have to appeal to the general audience, because basically, if you try to appeal to the general audience, that's usually where you run into problems, because you wind up with a product that, in attempts to appeal to everybody, appeals to nobody. So yeah, it's I don't know. I hope that this stuff changes in the future, man. Okay. There is one. Actually, I have two more articles to read. One of which is it's about Warhammer. This is a studio who actually seems to, like, the person who runs it actually seems to get what they should be doing, and hence the game did fairly well because of that. All right. Warhammer 40K Space Marine 2 dev explains why so many AAA games are failing. All right. Saber Interactive Chief Creative Officer Tim Willits shared his thoughts on why so many AAA game developers are failing. Speaking to IGN, Willits first rejected the idea that gamers were moving on from certain genres. He informed the outlet it's not necessarily the genre that has moved on, because great games will always do well. Yeah, it's like the same thing that superhero movies are over, and then Deadpool and Wolverine comes out and makes a lot of money. It's like, it's not the superhero genre that's failing, it's the crap that you're making that's failing. Next, he shared one of the core beliefs at Saber. He believes allows the company to succeed again and again. One of the things we try to do at Saber, and this is part of my job as creative officer of all teams, we have a core belief that what you do every second and what happens when you push these buttons, and that core gameplay loop is so critical. So we focus on the moment-to-moment interaction in the gameplay and the feelings you have. And we adhere to our core pillars, like the ultimate space, like be the ultimate space marine, melee, range, swarms. That's it. Yeah, it's simple. Is most people just want to grab the game, shoot stuff, kill giant dinosaurs, like whatever. It's like, that's why I love Monster Hunter so much. It is a nice gameplay loop where you and a buddy go out and you hunt giant monsters. You whack them over the head a couple of times, you may die. Like, they get harder and harder, so it's harder to do, and you got to actually strategize. But once you figure it out, and like once you beat that monster and you achieve your goal, it feels really good. It's like with Elden Ring. Elden Ring gives you that same feeling. It's like, yeah, you get your butt kicked, but eventually you figure out how to beat this thing, and when you do, yeah, it's very satisfying. All right. Then he returned to what he sees as mistakes that other developers make that lead to their demise. And a lot of teams throughout development will overscope games. They look at some other game that just came out and say, oh, we got to do that. Let's add this. We got to do this. And they lose focus on the core, which actually makes the game fun. Instead, he shares that Space Marine 2 developers and Saber focused on the basics. We are not in Space Marine 2 doing things that, well, swarms are new technology, but there are some revolutionary new gameplay mechanic that no one's ever seen before. There are gameplay mechanics that people are familiar with, and we do it really, really well, and we execute really, really well. All right. He also noted that Saber was able to keep its costs down on Space Marine 2, which I truly don't understand how much these games cost. I think Concord, like $200 to $400, and the Ubisoft Skull and Bones supposedly upwards of 650 to 800. 800 million. I'm like, I have no idea how you spend that much on these games. You noted that sorry, we don't need to sell 4 million units to make Space Marine 2 a success. However, this is not the case for many developers. There are many games, sadly, especially out of North American developers, where if you do not sell 5 million copies, you're a failure. I mean, what business are we in where you fail if you sell less than 5 million? Yeah, that's kind of crazy. These are examples like that, and we do not want to get to be in that business. We want to be a developer that focuses on the core experience and what makes games actually fun, and then do it well, do it really well, and then make it affordable. Affordably. He then pointed out Saber's success is sticking to the basics, not trying to revolutionize gameplay mechanics. Look at SnowRunner. Dude, SnowRunner is literally driving trucks through mud. That's it. I'm done. I just described the game. 15 million people played it because the experience is perfect. Yeah, people aren't looking for much, and that's why I was like kind of mad on the Halo things. Like they showing me shiny graphics. That's not. It's not what I'm like. It's not impressive anymore. It was impressive when it was new, when like that kind of stuff was a new thing. But like once we got past the point of everything is 4K looking, yeah, you showing me new shiny. Yeah, no, that's why people are playing old games because it's not about the graphics. I have to get an ad blocker. Look at World War Z. Like, come on, we're not going to get an Academy Award for that game, but 25 million people have played it because it's just this perfection, and that's what we do well. He reiterated. Willis comments on budget echoes that what Saber Interactive co-founder and CEO Matt Karch said about AAA development back in April. He told IGN, in general, I would say that the AAA development has become very risky, and whereas Saber is different. Saber, I believe, can create a AAA, but not a AAA budget. Furthermore, he noted that the $7 price tag for games will increase due to his increasing cost to produce games for many studios. These no, the cost of games have increased. They just hide it by saying like, all right, $70 is just for the base game, but if you want all the extra stuff that we have pulled out of the games to sell it, that's going to be another $30-$40. And that's basically what it is, because I had a conversation with someone who was asking about the price because he's not a gamer, so he was looking at the different prices and like wondering about this. I'm like, well, the highest price is the actual game. It is everything in the game. All the stuff that you used to get for free about 10, 15 years ago, now you pay for because they pulled it all out to sell you the deluxe edition and the collector's edition and blah, blah, blah. The collector's edition used to be what the game was. It's like you paid a little bit extra to get like some statue before, and it was an additional thing. But in terms of the gameplay and the game elements of the game, that was all whatever the base price was, and that's not the case no more. So, but they know that people are not going to spend on a regular $100 for these games. They're just not, especially since they're not that awesome. You know, then the $79. I do think as games become more expensive to make, the $79 title is going to go the way of the dodo bird. I do. I just don't think it's sustainable. Look, you remember the hype for Cyberpunk, which I think actually ultimately performed okay, but when the expectations are so high and so much money is put into one title, it's hugely risky for the company that's doing it. What if it fails? As far as Willis's comments regarding not revolutionizing gameplay mechanics, but mastering gameplay mechanics that players are already familiar with, it is hard to argue what he is stating. This is an analysis and commentary that you might want to hear regarding professional athletes, especially in hockey. If a team is struggling, one of the best pieces of advice they can get is to stop trying to overcomplicate things and get back to basics and do those things, those basics extraordinarily well, and usually turns out well. In fact, a recent example of how well it can do, other than Space Marines, is Persona 5. The game uses classic turn-based gameplay mechanics in a tried and true genre, found massive success. The success for the developer Atlas allowed them to spin the series off into multiple different genres, and dare I say, supplement Final Fantasy as a dominant turn-based role-playing series of this generation, which probably is the reason why the new Final Fantasy games are no longer turn-based. They're action RPGs now. So that probably has something to do with that. Wow. Willits brings up a number of valid points. He did not touch on the woke factor whatsoever, and the factor cannot be ignored, especially given the creation of Kabruta's Sweet Baby Inc. Detected Steam creator list, which effectively serves as a boycott list for any games that have even a whiff of woke ideology injected to them. Like I said with the previous video, as soon as that chick came on with the purple hair, everybody was like, all right, okay, I'm out. I'm good. And no matter what else you have to say, I'm not interested. And that's going to be more and more. And then I've seen a bunch of, which is funny, is like I've seen a bunch of stuff about these people sitting in their cars complaining about how they can't find jobs. I'm like, yeah, because you're gonna, because somebody can see you and like, yeah, you're gonna be a pain in the butt. You're gonna try to force a bunch of changes into everything to make you feel better about yourself. And at the end of the day, when it is not working out, I can't get rid of you because you're gonna scream racist and sexist and blah 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 blah. All right. So the curator has 446,331 followers. Is one of the top 5 largest curators on Steam. And while he didn't bring it up, Karch did in a YouTube video comment on Osman Gold's channel. He wrote, "Hey man, CEO of Saber here. I love your videos. When we signed the deal to make Space Marine 2, all I wanted was a throwback game. We had a chance to work on something with which by its nature is old school." Yeah, Black Wukong was offered like $7 million to add the services of Black. It may not have been Sweet Baby Inc., but it may have been one of the other numerous ones. They said no. And as soon as they said no, all of the attacks came out where everyone was calling them all this, that, and the other, and bringing up old stuff, taking it out of context to make it look like they were doing stuff that they weren't. And I think that's really not working. So can't comprehend how many current games we play now. They're too complex, too much investment. Next, he shared he was inspired by Halo. We worked on Halo back in the day, and that game can be distilled down to the simplest of shooting loops, but it's entirely addicting, and that's what we wanted to recapture. Too bad that the people who work at the Halo studios don't seem to understand that. Karch then shared his hope that Space Marine 2 Black Myth Wukong will the start of a revival in the video game industry to get back to fun and immersion. I think it is, because at some point people are just not going to buy the other stuff. And then once that starts to happen and these companies realize that people are not going to buy this stuff, then it will go back to the basics. They're going to have to, because that's where the customers are going to be at. So I hope that yeah, okay. Finally, he lamented that the state of industry during his brief time as chief operating officer at Embracer Group. I spent some time as the chief operating officer at Embracer, and I saw games there that made me want to cry with their overblown attempts at messaging or imposing morals on gamers. We just want do some glory kills and get to the heart rate up a little bit. And for me, that's what games should be about. All right. Yeah, it's like pretty interesting. But yeah, it's the truth. You have to give your customer what they want. You have to realize that whatever message that you're trying to, you can stick a message in the game. It's like a lot of these games are full of messages about heroism, teamwork, having your friends back and all that stuff. So these are things that are common stories. It's the hero's journey, which is not a problem. So you can tell that story, but all this other stuff, it's like when people say no, they're not interested. You keep doing it is not going to change their mind. What it's going to actually do is kind of cement their thoughts and make them more resistant to you. So, all right. So the last story of the day is about a second video game crash. All right, let me share the screen. All right. Is the second video crash on the horizon? This is brought to you by Bleeding Fool. The video game industry is a multi-billion-dollar juggernaut. It boasts massive profits, blockbuster releases, and a global audience that spans all age groups. Yes, despite its success, concerns are growing about the possibility of a second game market implosion akin to the infamous crash of 1983. While the market today is vastly different from the early of the early 80s gaming scene, because they had arcades and all that kind of stuff, which really don't exist anymore. Certain trends suggest that another similar downturn is not out of the question. So let's dig into why it's possible there's a second video game crash on the horizon. What happened in 1983? To understand the possibility of a second crash, we need to revisit the cataclysmic events of 1983. The first class primary cause was an oversaturation market filled with low-quality games, a lack of consumer confidence, and failure of major titles. Sounds familiar. Retailers became wary of video games, leading to a massive reduction in shelf space for games and consoles. The industry value plummeted, and many companies went out of business. That's not necessarily the issue nowadays, because a lot of these companies, they kind of control the their own shelf space. So it's not That's not an actual problem. The problem is there's too much, like, well, it's the oversaturation stuff. It is hard to find good things, but that's the case for music, books, comics, you name it, movies, everything. It's just too much crap because the barrier of entry is so low that anybody can do whatever. And a lot of these people don't know how to make a good product. All right. Market saturation, one of the many main factors that contributed to 1983 was a market saturation, and that is concerned today as well with the advent of digital distribution. The barriers to entry, see, that's what I'm talking about. For game development have lowered significantly. Platforms like Steam, the App Store, Google Play are flooded with thousands of new games every year. This is the same issue with Spotify too. It's like it's kind of hard to be seen if there's just so much shit there. All right. New games every year. While the demonetization of game development has brought many positives, is also inundated customers with too many choices. Many games struggle to stand out, and with such stiff competition, even well-made titles fail to find an audience. The rise of games as a service has resulted in fewer blockbuster releases, while IPs like Fortnite, Call of Duty remain profitable. The industry's heavy reliance on big franchise could create a bubble. If consumer interest in these games wanes, the bubble bursts, especially if there aren't enough popular titles to fill the void. Yeah. Another potential cause of the second video game crash could be the ever-increasing cost of development, which basically is the like the last article we read, and the guy from Saber Interactive basically said the same thing. AAA games do not require enormous budgets. I don't understand why. Often surpassing those of major Hollywood films. So game companies must achieve massive sales just to break even. Having just a few high-profile games underperform could cause an industry-wide domino effect. Let's not mention the push for cutting-edge graphics, which a lot of people aren't asking for. Most people, it's like, I think more people have a 4K television now because the prices are going down, but a lot of people don't. So you won't even notice the graphics. And like the PlayStation 5 Pro, it's telling you it does all these things. I'm like, well, most people's TVs they don't have a high-end television. They have low-end. If they have a 4K, it's a low-end 4K, and they won't even notice the difference. So you buying a new system to show you something that you can't even see on your television. And that's the biggest problem I had with the Halo presentation there. It was like it was showing me look how nice his gun looks. Like I don't care. All I care about is whether or not how well it performs. And like when I use it, that's all I care about. Increasingly complex game mechanics leading to a phenomenon of games launching in unfinished buggy states. Fiascos like Cyberpunk 2077 serves as a cautionary tale in squandering customers' goodwill. Yeah, it messed up the love people have for CD Projekt Red. Multiply that by a kind of backlash across several big releases, and we're looking at a widespread collapse in the market confidence. The indie game conundrum. While AAA developers face pressure from high costs and higher expectations, indie developers have their own obstacles to overcome. The indie scene is thriving, but also highly competitive. Many independent games struggle to find success due to limited marketing budgets and the aforementioned high volume of new releases. Yeah, all you got to do is look at this, like going to the Nintendo eShop. Yeah, it's like it is hard to find stuff unless it gets enough of a push to push it up to the front of the queue. Otherwise, it'll just get buried in like amongst this sludge. Same thing on the Xbox, same thing on the PlayStation. It's like, yeah, there are probably smaller games that'll be fun to play, but good luck finding them. Without a too big to fail parent company providing a safety net, a string of failures could cause a contraction in the indie market as well. Economic pressures. One potential stumbling block everybody misses on this topic is the effect of outside economic factors. Yeah, people don't have any money. I don't have enough money to buy two $70 games, so I am really careful about the one that I will purchase. So if you put out a bunch of titles that cost a lot and you need everyone to buy every last one of them, that's not going to happen, especially now. Just consider that a global recession would do to already inflation-strapped disposable income. New video games are luxury goods, so expect them to be among the first expenses people cut. Basically, that's what I did. And the rising cost of doing business can make companies scale back their operations, lay off workers, and even close for good, which is currently happening now. Consumer fatigue, but there's still an elephant in the room. Excuse me. The constant push for microtransactions, loot boxes, and other monetization strategies have gamers fed up. While profitable, these tactics incite a growing backlash. QEA and Take Two. It is to the point where, whereas I would like to play, like, the new 2K is fun. I played it. I know someone who bought it. It's fun, and I do enjoy the My Player thing. But I am tired of having to spend the extra $50 to get my player to the point where he can be usable, and I think a lot of people like me, because people used to talk about NBA 2K a lot. Now the only people who really talk about 2K are basketball players when they talk about their how they're ranked, and like ESPN or whatever. But if you go on YouTube, yeah, you can. The guys who used to, their channels were dedicated to 2K, they talk about other stuff now. They don't even talk about it anymore because they're so focused on making money. They stop innovating the game. So it's like it's a little here and a little there, and they'll play a little different. But other than that, it's the same. You buying the same stuff every year. All right. Don't believe me? Look at the Mortal Kombat franchise. There you have a solid gold IP that printed money for decades, according to a friend in the know. A sizable contingent of MK install base were such diehard fans, they didn't play any other fighting games. But ever since Ed Boon was muscled away from the wheel, the series' new owners have steered it into one iceberg after another. The content nickel and diming player costs MK its core fan base. Yeah, and they just basically changed two robots into basically two like the chicks from Wakanda, that I forgot the what their names were. That's basically what they turned them into. So it's like it's the two Wakanda girls instead of the two robots that it used to be, because you get the diversity points, I guess. And this kind of discontent continues to grow. It could damage sales throughout the industry as consumer confidence erodes. Yeah. Could it really happen? That's the question, isn't it? While current trends raise a host of yellow, even red flags, a full-scale crash like we saw in 1983 seems unlikely at present. Today's gaming industry is more diversified with multiple revenue streams, including mobile gaming, esports, and streaming. But, and this is a big caveat, the same safeguards that protect the industry could also create pockets of instability. Significant downturn in one area, say AAA game sales or live service games, could send ripples throughout the industry in a shockwave that hits developers, publishers, and investors alike. Again, it's not inevitable, but anyone who thinks the game industry is immune to repeating past mistakes suffers similar consequences, kidding himself. Market saturation, runaway development costs, dwindling consumer trust, and global economic pressure could create a perfect storm. A better question might be if the game industry can stave off a second crash with competent leadership determined to keep customer interest. Yes, AAA can navigate the choppy waters ahead. Then again, the current crop of corporate managers aren't exactly renowned for their competence, are they? All right, that's a pretty good article. Yeah, man, it's like, yeah, I actually agree with that. You don't know what the future of games are. It's like they did the exact same thing in movies where they forgot what their core customer base was, and they decided that they want a new customer base. That's what Lucasfilm did. Lucasfilm decided that they wanted a new customer base. They didn't want the 50-year-old guys who brought their children to go to this thing. They thought they can get a whole new fan base. But the problem is unless you were a child when Star Wars came out, that was the only time you weren't introduced to it by an adult. It's like it's like it was a new thing as a kid, and you went to go see the new thing as a kid. but then you loved it so much, you showed it to your friends, you showed it to your girl, you showed it to your kids, blah, 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 blah. And that's how younger generations got into it through their parents, through the older generation. So if you piss off that customer base, then there's going to be no interest in your IP. So I don't understand why these companies do this, but it is what it is. All right, well, it's been a pretty informative. It's been a pretty informative day, and those articles are pretty good. So I think I'm gonna call it a night. So to all you out there on Rumble and YouTube who checks us out, please leave a comment down below. Let me know how you think and all that fun stuff. And I'm out. Later.